Hello everybody, Assalamu alaikum, Marhaba, Annyeonghaseyo. This is Heartbeat Confessions and I'm your host Sassy Maisa. Welcome back to episode 2 of Heartbeat Confessions. As you guys can read from our title, today's topic is a bit stereotypical. So as usual, I was scrolling through Twitter when I came across the Sunnah guy's post where he was explaining about some encounter he had with a bunch of 16 to 18 years old, I believe. I remember the whole video, but I do remember the incident happening and like what he was talking about. And he was talking about how he was advising them that they should be worrying about getting married instead of focusing on their career and all that stuff. Further explaining that women age like milk, whereas men age like wine. I kid you guys not. Guys, when I heard those words, I low-key could not hold my breath. And the first thing that came to my mind was, wait, what? Did he just say that? And I couldn't stop laughing. What's worse was the comment section. People coming after the Muslim feminists. I don't even know why is that a thing and what do they want from the Muslim woman. Anyhow, long story short, I knew I had to talk about this topic because of the amount of misguidance out there and young girls being influenced by the likes of him. Also, it's very important for those so-called dini men to humble themselves and educate themselves on the importance of women being educated. And no, she does not expire once she is 30. It wouldn't be fair on me to categorize all men, but this message is for those specific people who need to get the idea of women belong in the kitchen out of their heads. So, women have been subjected to various discriminations, whether it's gender-based, in a workplace, or in a certain role in this society. We can't disagree with that. However, they have been deprived of their basic rights which are given to them by law and their religion. Okay? To the men of today, women are seen as objects that don't deserve to have their own identity and that they should live a submissive life. This isn't the teachings of our religion, as respect goes both ways. Also, why are women being the subject of entertainment for those big YouTubers? Why not send out messages to men giving examples about how the Sahabas lived their lives so the brothers can benefit from it, instead of targeting women day in and day out for cheap publicity? The saying that women age like milk, while men age like wine, is obviously misogynistic, and this concept is still omnipresent, which harms women, convincing them that they are less worthy than men. Even though the Sunnah guy later on realized that his tone for the message wasn't right, he should have realized that before posting it on the internet instead of giving a half-hearted apology after the backlash he got on Twitter. And then he went on and be like, oh, I did not know the power of Twitter, and then now I have realized blah, 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 blah. Dude, just give it a minute. Stop acting like Muslim women are influenced by the West. Do you think Allah created us without brains and we are surviving on a peanut brain that doesn't function? Rolling on the floor laughing. We don't have to continue to accept the definition of our value and the parameters of our worth as dictated by our misogynistic culture. Women's power is usually considered inferior because of their predetermined role as homemakers, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. A woman being more educated than a man isn't a threat to his masculinity. Instead, it's his insecurities that are boiling up in the form of dissing females. Even the first guidance given by the Holy Quran was to read Iqra, and it was for both men and women. So how can they be deprived of the right to be educated when it was given to them by Allah? Islam is usually considered a backward religion, but in reality, if you go back 1,400 years ago, like decades ago, in the time of complete ignorance, we'll find many women who were scholars and participated in several battles of Islam, and not just battles, but in several other fields of science and literature. And it's not my job to educate you, that's for you guys to go out there and do your research. Prophet Muhammad said, whenever I turned left or right on the day of the Battle of Uhud, I always saw her, referring to Amara, fighting in my defense. This is just one of the evidence that women fought battles with men. They traveled together and were in the front line whenever they were needed. But the main point of this is that they did not acquire these skills overnight. They were taught these skills from an early age. That means their education and upbringing were equally important as others. No matter what help or patriarchal a society gets, for a nation to be well developed, it is important to let both men and women be educated and skilled, so that they can shape the next generation together. Women have got gifted capabilities and a great potential to shape a nation in every matter, so they should not be considered inferior. This discrimination has blinded us so much that it affects opportunities and their role in a society. Judging the choices we make for ourselves have become a common practice in our society. If an educated woman chooses herself to be a housewife and to nurture her family for a better society, she is judged and marked as an old-fashioned or outdated woman. Similarly, if a woman chooses her career before starting a family, she is also insulted over her choice. So no matter what she does, she is judged. But why? When are we going to come out of this mindset? Every human being has a right to be respected regardless of their gender, but the prejudice that is so deeply rooted in our society regarding women and their basic rights is what is causing our societies and culture to fail. The differential access of what men and women can have is what make it a patriarchal society, leading in an unjust distribution of resources. And we have seen this happening time and time again. Whether a woman chooses to be a housewife or a career, they both deserve a little more than respect because both of them require hours of labor and dedication, which obviously a man would not understand. These inequalities seem small, but these are the reason that we have such an unjust society and so much prejudice against women, and also the violence they have to face every day. The true measure of progress in any society depends on the achievement of women. So let's look at some quotes. There's a quote by Michelle Obama that says, "History has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on life on its own." And there was a poet called Audre Lorde where they mentioned that it is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences, which we clearly see happening in today's society. But when are we going to learn? Scientifically, it is proven that men feel more lonelier than women. And no, I'm not making this up. I have done my research, so I would just advise you guys to go out there and do your research again. The President of America, Barack Obama, was an educated man who supported his wife and wasn't intimidated by her dedication to her career. Even when she was called or often referred to as an angry black woman and was asked whether she was a man or woman just because of her race. She grew up in an ordinary working class home. Her mother was a housemaker, but despite the fact that she was raised to be an ambitious woman, to use her voice and to be goal-oriented, her man was not threatened by that. As a black American, she had to face a lot of discrimination and racial comments that did not stop her. At the peak of her career, she had to leave everything behind and left her job at Chicago Medical Center job when Obama became the president. Obviously, obviously it's not an easy thing to do it, and I know that not everybody would do it, but in a marriage you have to compromise, and over here we can see that she clearly did. And in the comment she said, "It had been painful to step away from my work, but there was no choice. My family needed me, and that mattered more." So when people say, "Oh my God, women don't compromise," that is not true, because when we look back at bigger examples, we can see that that can happen. I'm not gonna use that as an excuse, but that support needs to come from my husband as well, from the person who's with me, or it's like vice versa. She also wrote that her husband was her biggest supporter and encouraged her to take the risk she needed and to pursue her dreams, which is an amazing thing. Becoming is a great example of the case that if a woman is allowed to breathe freely and support in her ambitions, she can maintain the work-life balance and support her husband and be a mother, because there is nothing wrong in choosing both or either of them. History is an example that women can have a life and work balance. This is a good example that I thought it would be great to look at in terms of the modern day. If you look at the days of the prophets, and the biggest example that we all know about is Khadija radiallahu anha. She was one of the most influential women in the history of Islam. She was a businesswoman in the age when ignorance regarding women was at its peak. She was the one who supported her almost single-handedly husband, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, financially and emotionally in the early days of Islam. She used to manage her own business dealings. Islam transformed the role of women overnight by giving them the rights they were deprived of. There's a whole surah called Surah Nisa in the Quran It was the era when people felt shame on the birth of their daughters. Islam, in fact, encourages women to live their lives within the rights given to them, to be educated, to acquire the skills needed to survive, to be respected in every role they are in their lawful right. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us that there is no difference in the worth between a believing man and woman on the basis of their gender. All these misogynistic social norms are the result of lack of education and old customs created within a patriarchal society, defining the worth of both genders. People with those mentality reminds me of the Jahiliyyah era, where girls were buried alive and killed because they were seen as a burden or that they would bring shame to the family. Women before us fought for our rights to be recognized today, even if time has passed. Sometimes it feels like we're still stuck in the past, not gonna lie. And a man would live his 20s getting to know 30 women, be in a haram relationship, promising them all of marriage, but will continue jumping from one female to another. Why doesn't anyone talk about those men? Because again, once we do that, they're like, oh, just make sure you're not mentioning each other's sins. But then once a woman is in topic or like in the picture, everybody will be happy to point fingers at them. And then their moms go out and look rich out for their sons in the 30s, trying to get them married to a girl who is probably 10 years younger, a virgin with a fair complexion, and blah 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 blah. Going back to the topic that women age like milk. According to medical professionals, and research conducted, it's a stereotype that men age better than women. However, there is some science behind it. Okay, Allah has created us all differently, whereas women have estrogen hormones and men have testosterone, and I know like majority of us know that. However, we all have collagen in our skins, and if nobody knows what collagen is, it's a type of vitamin or something I would call that keeps us from aging. Males lose collagen earlier and more consistently throughout their life. Okay. However, females tend to keep more until menopause, when they lose it at a dramatic rate. That's why you see it would be very obvious that the woman is aging. Okay, but it doesn't mean that men are not aging. Cool. This quicker decline in hormone levels is the reason that men seem to age more slowly than women do. Okay, women's estrogen levels begin to decline around the age of 40 or 50, whereas men's testosterone levels do not begin to decline until age around 55 or 60. Now, there are different research about that, but this is just a basic example. Okay, so biologically, the average woman's reproductive years are between the ages of 12 and 51. This means that fertility naturally declines as you get older, which could make it harder for you to conceive. That doesn't mean that once you're 20, you're infertile or something like that, unless you have like medical issues and stuff like that. However, it is not that fertility falls off a cliff starting at age 30, but the chance of getting pregnant really goes down after the age of 35. Again, different research says different things. Okay? Biological clock is different for everyone and isn't the same to physical health. I think it's really important for us to differentiate between the two. Other than that, putting a timestamp on a woman's age doesn't make them less attractive, or saying things like, the clock is ticking for the career woman. It's just an outdated mindset that started in the 70s, and its sole purpose was to counterattack the effects of women's liberation. To the young girls out there, do not be influenced by what people around are saying. There are women fighting all odds to be educating and wanting to work on their dreams. Allah has already written for us what will be given to us and what we will not get on this earth. And if you chose to work and to support yourself or your family, it doesn't make you less of a person, or it doesn't mean that you're taking on masculine traits. Have dreams, work on your business, work on yourself, travel the world, and above all, ask Allah to make it easier for you. If your husband wants you to stay at home and be the sole breadwinner, then again, there is nothing wrong with it. If he's happy to provide for you and wants you to relax, that's his responsibility and should fulfill all your needs. Meantime, you can support him with that, but on the other hand, you should still have your own hobbies. You just don't sit in front of TV all day and like be like, oh my god, I feel like I'm not doing anything or I'm losing my life. No, learn a new hobby, learn to sew, learn to stitch, do your hair, do your makeup, take care of yourself. Read about skincare, whatever. Learn how to drive, go out there, take yourself on days, go out on picnics, have girly chats. But yeah, in order to make a marriage work, it works both ways. Does it make sense? It's not like people say you can't clap with one hand, you clap with both hands. And let's say, for example, a female who got married at the age of 20 something, she lived all her life being dependent on her parents. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But then after getting married, she has to move to a different country or a city. And let's say the husband gets sick or something tragic happens. By now, this lady is left all alone in an unknown place with 2 kids to take care of. She doesn't know anything about how the world works and like what's out there. There are monsters out there, and right now she has to work 10x more to establish herself from scratch, which happens, by the way. These stories are not something I'm making up. These are things I've read, these are things that I've listened to, these are things that I have seen, and this is just a one-time scenario that I mentioned, but I've heard more worse stories. Right now she's in a situation where she has to financially support herself and her kids. But because we can't predict the future, her family might have thought, oh, what's the point of sending her to college, to uni, or stuff like that, or teaching them about finances? Because of someone's decision, this woman has to learn to stand up on her feet with no support. Is that fair on her? Please tell me, is this fair on her? No, because she did not choose that for herself. Right. Let's say someone gets divorced, or her parents have reached an age where they need someone to take care of them, and they don't have an extended family and doesn't have a son, or the son is too busy messing around to be supporting his parents. Let's just say these are again things that happen, okay, and vice versa. Shall the woman throw her older parents in a care home? Want her to do that? What is she meant to do in that situation? Or should she work on getting a job to support her family? I'm giving you guys all those scenarios so you guys can think from this different perspectives instead of being locked in your head and not seeing what's happening out there. This world is very injustice towards women, and it's very obvious. Do you know that a woman wanting to freeze her eggs costs around 5,000 to 8,000, around that much pounds in the UK or like all over the world, whereas a man wanting to freeze his sperms could cost less? And if you go up and search it on Google, you probably have more results of women wanting to freeze their eggs than a man wanting to freeze his sperms. And you know why? It's probably because women's fertility is a fair, and because it's a fair, it has just turned into a big business that companies are benefiting from it. We can see that happening. The point I'm trying to make here is being educated is a blessing. Being able to work is a blessing. Having someone to support you is a blessing. We should all be thankful for the opportunities given to us and encourage each other to be the best versions of ourselves. I will finish off this episode by just putting this out there. Dear woman, you are not a threat to anyone. You have the right to be someone. And to the young men out there, educate yourself on the struggles we have to go through to build a safer community for us. Women and men both age differently based on individual factors such as genetics, lifestyle, environment, health, and all that kind of stuff. Aging is a natural and inevitable process that affects everyone, regardless of gender, and it is very important to treat individuals with respect and avoid making unfair generalizations based on gender. There's a quote by Michelle Obama that says, "Women endure entire lifetimes of these indigenities in the form of catcalls, groping, assault, oppression, and all that kind of stuff. These things injure us. They sap our strength. Some of the cuts are so small they're barely visible. Others are huge and gaping, leaving scars that never heal. Either way, they accumulate. We carry them everywhere, to and from work and to school, at home, while raising our children, and our places of worship, anytime we try to advance." What can I say? As you guys can see, This is not only a one person's story. This is a story of every female out there, where they're not given a voice. And the goal of this platform is for me to be a voice for all these voiceless people. And the next time you come across someone on the internet trying to generalize women and calling them that they expire and that they have a ticking clock on them, or like whatever clock you want to call them, yeah, it is your responsibility to stop them and educate them. And if you can't do that, then you have failed the society and you have failed us. So yeah, let's make sure that we are raising our voice against those issues. Until next time, annyeong, see ya, bye.